What's up, folks at home? Welcome back to the channel. Is it always windy, cold, and rainy whenever you get to go fishing? Because it seems like it always is when I'm fishing. We got 14, 15 mile an hour winds. It's warm though, it's 60-ish. We got a steady wind, we got fall into winter transition. We got water 56, it's probably gonna fall on me right now. Hey, we're gonna catch them. We'll see you out there.
You ever have one of those days on the water where you just get thrown for an absolute loop? This was my day today. Couple factors set me up for failure today on the water. One, I game planned to almost exclusively fish offshore schools of fish. Now, the wind was way more significant than I realized, and the fish were scattered everywhere. There was no schools of bait. There were no fish stacked up anywhere. I threw an Alabama rig. I threw a deep diving jerkbait. I threw literally the kitchen sink at those fish. And it got so windy at one point that I couldn't hold the boat anymore. So that left me with moving shallow. Now, problem is Chapman Lake right now is down about 3 feet from what it normally is, and the water is really clear. So any fish that I did see shallow were super skittish, super small. Not a great formula for success in the fall. To complicate, I overthink here. I am fishing way too fast for 50-degree water temps and a heavy thing moving through. I'm fishing this channel like the water's 65 degrees, right? I'm throwing a dark sleeper because at this point, it's one of the best options I have for a bottom contact bait in clear water. I'm skipping docks, I'm doing all of these things, but this is just fishing too fast.
Got one on the dark sleeper, back in the channel. He's a wee one. There you go. It's a giant if you hold it close to the camera. Sleeper.
So I started fishing all of these calm channels that I could find with the sleeper, with a Ned rig, no dice. So I moved to other channels that I knew historically held fish. This was the wrong move. Right now I'm forcing it. I'm forcing a bite that is not there. I pick up the chatterbait on these windy channels because you can't feel the bait as well in the windy channels, and the leaves are everywhere. I picked up the chatterbait to try to force it. Looking back, I was fishing way too fast for the conditions, and that's something that we fall victim to as anglers sometimes. When we aren't getting bites, when the plan doesn't work, we tend to fish faster, and I fell victim to my own kind of design here. I wanted to fish fast, I wanted to fish offshore, I wanted to fish reaction baits because I've been preaching reaction bait, and I didn't fish the moment. I didn't read the water that was in front of me, right? Throwing a chatterbait in 50-degree water should work. It wasn't on this day. You got to be able to adjust. So where did I go wrong? Number one, I didn't fish the conditions. Here's another windy day in the fall. You got sun in this picture, but it's still post-frontal like I was in. And what I know about this lake is that fish love to use the humps and islands to set up, and basically I forgot that in a windy situation, as you can see, this wind is going to start to stream in here as the video rolls, that fish are going to set up in a current. And what I was not doing was I was not fishing current like I should have been this day. Any windy day is going to position fish like they were if they were in a river. In a river, you have current breaks and seams where fish are going to sit behind that so they don't have to spend a lot of energy and they're going to flash out and eat things. This day on Chapman Lake, same lake here, I'm catching fish on a drop shot in cooler water because I was fishing it like a current break. I'm finding reed patches, I'm finding islands and humps, and I'm fishing the back side of that island and bringing that bait up onto the top of it, and those fish were hammering it just like they were on a current break. The water being cold really has nothing to do with it. What I was doing was forcing a bite that wasn't there. I wanted to fish fast, I wanted to fish reaction, and that wasn't happening. Sometimes the hardest thing to do on the water is to get that first plan or that first instinct out of your mind and go to the backup, right? Here I figured out that fish were sitting on these different pieces of structure out of the current. So what I'm doing is I'm floating down this line, hitting these different pieces of structure that I see on my side scan as I'm coming up. Yeah, it's not a perfect system and I'm not catching giant fish, but I'm catching a lot of fish. And eventually, as you work your way through this lake, you're gonna catch some better fish. You just have to fish the moment, right? So a lot of times on the water, what we need to do is really focus on what are the fish doing, how do I meet the fish where they're at, not necessarily forcing a bite that you know is not there. Going shallow was not my best option. I needed to find a better way to deal with the wind, a better way to deal with the way that fish were set up. And that really wasn't my best option to go shallow. As you can see, I caught one rat and nothing else. So it's just a learning experience. The next thing that we also need to consider is the bait that you're throwing and the location that you're fishing. I'm a huge believer in if you're not catching fish, you're not around them. But two, in situations where it is tough, you need to be throwing the appropriate bait for what those fish are feeding on. I know in Chapman Lake there are a ton of small bait fish and there's a ton of perch. In this video, I literally am throwing a green finesse worm because it looks just like a small perch. When I was drop shotting the other day, I was literally throwing a white baitfish flatworm and they weren't eating it and they didn't want it. And I know at Chapman there are a ton of perch. So when you are on a lake, you need to consider what they're eating and not what you want to throw to the bass. And sometimes it's more difficult to do that, and it's more difficult to kind of check your pride and check what you think should be working to figure out what is working. But guys, let us know how we can help you out on the water. We are growing. Let us know in the comment section what videos you want to do one on. I wanted to do a video on what happens when things don't go perfect, because most of the time on the water, you're going to have to punt and you're going to have to figure out what the fish want. It's a perfect example of me not reading the water, not reading and doing all these things that I preach about all the time. And I didn't catch them, right? I caught one little rat. I caught a lot of fish on this day, but no big ones. Some days it's just like that on the water. So learn from your mistakes, learn from your past experiences. Always try to tap into that wealth and see what the fish want. You got to meet them where you're at. You got to meet the fish, match the hatch. You'll catch them. Hey, we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us today. We hope you learned something, and we are definitely going to catch them next time we're out on that water. If you see us out there, give us a holler, guys. We'll see you.